What's up, Gary? So, I have to have, for some reason, my chat is not refreshing through my software, so that I have to actually watch my own live stream, which is kind of lame. But, oh well, we'll make it work. So, anyways, I wanted to do this because we are technically today is the, and you guys, sorry real quick, I gotta take my medicine, I'm running behind today. Today is the actual start of the late model masterclass. So I'm gonna actually try, today is a holiday, so I don't know for sure if I will, but I'm gonna try to get the first video out today on the limited late models. Because of that, I'm not going to have a lot of time to be doing stuff like this. Not only that, I'm not going to have a lot of time to do a lot of sprint car stuff in general. And that is by far the most popular when it comes to not just the dirt racing on iRacing, but also in our group. It hands down, iRacing, or the 360 and 410 sprint cars winged are the most popular cars. That's what everybody wants help with. That's what everybody races. That, you know what I mean? Like, even the people who are not big fans of them still race them, because those are the one cars that you can like always find to race. Pro late models are like that too in a way, but really the wing sprint cars, I mean, that's like where it's at. So I wanted to do this because, like I said, I'm not going to have a whole lot of time. And for those of you who have watched like the video I put out on Volusia last week, and if you watched some of my live streams as of late, you will have noticed that I am doing different stuff with the car setups now. And I've had a lot of people asking me questions like, hey, do I need to change the setups? Hey, is the stuff you gave us still good? You know, all kinds of stuff. And I don't want people to think that like I gave you something and like I've been keeping secrets from you, because that's not the case. I've literally been learning a lot of this stuff as I go. And we're going to actually cover really how I came up with this stuff. It's only going to take a minute before we dive into everything, because I want you guys to know how I figured this stuff out and why why we've kind of come like full circle with the setups. Okay, so first off, this setup right here, I'm going to show it to you. This setup right here, Charlotte 2019 season 3, done by Weston Newell. This is basically what started it all for me in terms of figuring these things out. I found this setup on OSR, Old School Racing Motorsports. Put it in, ran it, and did pretty good. And was shocked because you can see here 1025 bars on all four corners. And when I first saw that, not only was I shocked, I was pissed, because I was like, that shouldn't work. There's no way that should work. Never on a slick track in real life would we increase the bars. We just wouldn't do it. That doesn't work. And so this was what basically started everything kind of being turned on its head for me. Now, in the very race that I drove this setup, I've talked about this before. I used to, all the times in the mornings, there was this group of like 12 to 15 guys that always raced together, because it was at like 5:30 a.m. One of the guys who always kicked all of our butts is a guy by the name of Jason Burton. Phenomenal sprint car driver on this game. Phenomenal. How he's not a pro is beyond me. But I had heard him during a race, because he wasn't like extremely open, but he would drop little nuggets about what he did with his setups here and there. And one of the things that I picked up on was him talking about how he ran with the wing all the way forward. And he did this in qualifying and in the heat race. And I also heard him talk about how he like never puts the wing past 2 in the feature. And so that was when I started testing with the wing all the way forward. And so what I had started doing is I had started running a setup like this. As you can see, this is kind of similar to what my base setups are. I changed the ride heights because this was a feature setup. So I changed the ride heights, modified the fuel, slammed the wing down, pushed it all the way forward, and then basically kind of started working from there. Then I discovered this thing right here in the iRacing forums. And this guy basically goes through and lays out all of this stuff. And this is in the, if you go to 410 Wing Sprint Cars and Sprint Car Setup Tutorial, you can read this yourself. And he goes through a lot of stuff. This is basically this is real life stuff, okay? A lot of this I think he got from a book. I can't remember the book name, but he got it from a book. But what's important is this down here, where he talks about, did I pass it? I think I did. Where's the part on the bars? Shocks bars. In here, I think it's this section. Somewhere along inside here, he talks about the bars and how iRacing doesn't really like softer bars, like the stiffer bars. From what he was saying, he's like, really, and from what I can see in iRacing is when it comes to the stiffer bars, it's really just about the roll center and the center of gravity of the car, or the center of gravity height. CHG is what you call it. And so that was where pretty much, once I had heard those things, saw that setup, heard Jason Burton, and saw this, that was when I basically said, okay, everything that I thought I knew about setups does not apply here in iRacing. So I just started throwing everything out and started working with from what I had here, and started just adjusting based off of the stuff that I had kind of figured out. And I came up with the base setups that you guys have today, okay, the ones that I gave you guys. I figured them out for the 360s. I didn't get my B license for the 410s until this season, okay? So I haven't even ran that much 410s. At the start of the, like 2 weeks before the master class started, when I realized I was going to get my B license, and I had, I had people asking me about doing this training, and I had come up with the idea to do it, I was like, well, if I'm going to be giving people setups, I should have setups for all the cars, right? Like, before I go out and say, hey, I'm going to give you guys all these setups, I need to have them. And so I basically started to do the same thing, the same thought process with the 410s. And then I was like, well, what if I take my 360 setups, change the gear, maybe, put them on the car, and then just tweak those? And that's what I did. Okay. Fast forward to the masterclass, week 2 or 3. I'm running 410 races at Knoxville, right? It's like the week that I drove Knoxville like 10 times, right? In 360s and 410s. My setups are falling off like crazy, and I can't figure out why. I don't know what's going on. And I knew then that I was missing something. Pretty much since that point, I've been on this mission to figure out what the hell is going on. Why did my setups fall off, particularly in the 410s? Because I'm winning races in the 360s, and other people are winning races too with these setups. But for some reason, with me and other people, they kept telling me that the setups are falling off, and the only way that I could fix it was with the wing. And although that works, there's a certain point, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit, that you want the track to be at to use that much wing, okay? And so I started trying to figure out, what the hell was going on. And this basically led me almost back to square one. Not entirely back to square one, because I know everything that I know now, but pretty damn close. And so I started reworking things. And what I discovered, and I talked about this in the last live stream that I did, is that the 410 car is what they built first, right? That's what they scanned. That's what they built. Turns out it was actually a XXX chassis, which has makes a huge difference. And because a lot of my notes that I was using and going off of were from back in the day, and our cars were all Maxims. And so, and believe it or not, that does make a difference. But they did the 410 first, and then they went to the 360, and then built that, kind of changed things based off of, I don't know, whatever they thought, I guess. But it's not the same. In fact, it's different. And the more I've dove into it, the more different I've discovered it to be. Okay, and so now I've got a bunch of different stuff that you can do. Now, let me first off preface by saying this. If you are having success with the setups I gave you, don't change anything, okay? Like, don't go out and sacrifice what is like really good right now for you for the pursuit of perfection. God, there's a tongue twister, okay? Because what will happen is you'll end up taking a lot of steps back. All right, so always make sure that you've got those base setups that I've given you. If they're working for you, make sure that you've got them saved somewhere so you can always revert back to those as a baseline. Everything that I'm going to talk about in this live stream today, I have tested against my base setups, okay? And they either perform on par, or in some cases a little bit better, and in some cases a little bit worse. It just depends, all right? So make sure that you do that, because you don't want to just start throwing everything, throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks, okay? So that is how that brings us to today, all right? And, well, almost. There was one other thing, the charity race. In the charity race, I ran fifth in the 305s, but in the 360 and 410 race, I was third and third. The people who beat me were extremely fast. I couldn't keep up with them to save my life. Even if I missed my setup on both nights. That's why I had to go to the bottom like that and stay down there. I missed my setup on both nights. It wouldn't have mattered. I would not have caught Justin in the 360 race. I would not have caught Hayden or Shay in the 410 race. Just, it wouldn't have happened. But I had noticed that those guys looked like they were kind of doing some different stuff, particularly like Hayden and Justin. So I can't remember which one of them, but one of them, their wing looked a lot higher than like everybody else's. Like they had a lot more angle. And if you guys remember, I actually did tests on that with the 410s, where I had tested all these different angles and discovered that, hey, it actually doesn't make that big of a difference when the track slicks off. As the track slicks off, you can put some more wing into it. This setup that's on the screen right now, if you look, his starts at 27 degrees and at the 7 position. And this setup is fast in the 360, right? It's really fast. At a 50-60% track, I was turning sub 14 second laps. That's fast. Really, you're gonna win official races at a good clip if you can do that. Okay, so like this is a good setup. My setup against this was right on par with it, and I was running my wing all the way forward. So the key that I've discovered to this is that there is this balance that you have to find for your driving style. You guys, this is, like I said, I got good news and bad news. The good news is that you can make a lot of changes and make these setups your own and still be really, really fast. The bad news is there is no cookie cutter black and white, here you go, you're gonna go have success, right? Because I know that that's what everybody is hoping, or not everybody, but I know that's what a lot of people are hoping for, right? A lot of people got my setups and it was like, finally, I've got the key, I can go out and have success. And a lot of you have. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've seen all the posts and you guys send me messages all the time of your results showing wins or second places and all kinds of stuff, which is awesome. But there is the cookie cutter, you need to do X, Y, Z to get this result. It's not there. The only constant that I have found for me is that and this is only when the track slicks off, you want the left front higher than the right rear. That's it. Remember before I said it has to be all the way up? That's not even true. It just needs to be higher than the right rear. When the track is fresh and tacky, even that is not the case. I did tests today, ran almost identical lap times with the left front lower than the right rear and then the left front higher than the right rear. And that was the only thing I changed. And once the track slicked off, though, that was where I started to see the lap times really fall when the left front is lower than the right rear. Okay, so that's the only constant that I can find. So what we're gonna cover today is I'm gonna basically go over things with you in terms of what it'll do, how it will affect the setup, and what you want to be looking for to determine whether or not it's going to improve or slow down your results. All right. So that being said, let's dive in. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that when it comes to the fresh track, right? So we're talking practice and qualifying. The rule remains the same in terms of the wing. You want it all the way forward and you want it flat. That is one thing I can tell you, it still remains the same. I have tested this immensely, and for me, and that's the thing, all of this stuff is for me. So this is my driving style, my results. Okay, you could go out and drive completely different than me and have completely different results, but for me to have success in practice, I don't care about practice, but qualifying and the heat race, I need my wing forward. The wing's got to be forward. It slows me down a considerable amount if I have to pull that wing back in qualifying, if I have to qualify with that wing back or have that wing back in the heat race. It slows me down. I wish, because I've been saying for a long time that I start the features with the wing at -1, I'll move it back like 1 or 2, because with all that fuel, I want to make sure that I can get through the first turn, see how it feels. And Shay, who is I mean, if we're doing a comparison of me and Shay and we're on like a teeter-totter, right? Like Shay's here and I'm down here. Like, I mean, he's a way better driver than me. He said the exact same thing, which I absolutely love, because when the track slicks off, that wing, you use it to stabilize the car. If there's one thing that I have discovered with all of the testing that I have done on dry slick tracks, it is once you get past about 50 or 60% on the track, that pulling that wing back, the amount of speed that you lose in terms of pulling the wing back is offset by the amount of stability and traction and consistency that you will gain from pulling that wing back. It's not even close. It's not even close. This track they're on right now, this is a 100% track. I've been doing tests on a 100% track. From 60, 78, all the way up to 100. I've been doing this. And with moving that wing back, whatever angle it's at, moving it back when the track gets slick, what you gain in stability and traction will offset any loss of power, even in the 360s. 360s, 410s, does not matter. Okay? So do not be afraid to put wing in it. All right, don't be afraid to do that. If you guys, those of you who watched the charity race that I did just a couple nights ago, right? It was at Eldora 360s. The guys ahead of me were studs, right? Like Richard Murtaugh Jr., Brett Wheeler, Dylan Hauser. Like, these guys are pros. And my car, I was running third. I made a mistake. I screwed up. It cost me. But before I screwed up, I was running third. I had the wing back at 2. And I was keeping with them. If I didn't suck so bad at restarts, like, I would have been right there with them. They were only a couple 100s faster than me. And I had said going into that race with the setup, I said if I can make it through the first 15 to 20 laps, because it was a 40-lap feature, I'll be good. Unfortunately, I didn't make it. I crashed myself out at like lap 15, so didn't make it. But I had the wing back, so that will fix more things in terms of the instability of the car than just about every other mechanical setting. Here's the thing: you don't want it to be a crutch. Like I said, when the track is fast, when there's grip in the track, that will cost you speed, right? You've got to have the track slick. This is why I think the pros and stuff, it's why I think they like the track to be so slick. Because yes, it is a matter of the driver controlling it and stuff like that. It has a lot to do with driving. And it also has to do with the fact that if you can figure out that balance, it makes the driving part a lot easier. If you're someone like me who has to absolutely nail the setup and then have to go out and run a perfect race to even be in the top 20 with, A license guys, let alone absolute pros, it's not even close. So I really understand why those guys like those, why they like the tracks like that. And with And I've seen a couple of their setups. I don't want to say names or anything like that, but they have wing in their setups. They do. So I can't harp on this enough. Don't be afraid to put wing in it, okay? That will really, really help, particularly when it's slick. Like I said, qualifying, practice, or heat race, leave it forward. But once you get to that feature, move that thing back. If you can run wide open and smooth with it forward, then do it. But if you're noticing that the car feels loose or it feels unstable, move that wing back. Just go 1 or 2 notches. You'll be amazed at how much it'll help. Absolutely amazed. Okay? So, what are we looking for with the setup? Okay? Because this is really what I've discovered with these things. What is it that we want to accomplish with these setups, right? What you're looking for is you are looking for a setup that you can drive smooth and consistently. And you want that setup to be as free as possible. Understand, free does not mean it's not hooked up, okay? We covered this in the last live stream I did. When a car is loose, right? It's loose for 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is you're driving through the slick and you don't have any traction. Reason number 2 is you've got too much grip, right? The right rear has actually got too much grip and it's literally spinning the car around. So you want your car to be as loose as possible, right? You want to take it all the way to that edge, that you can control it and drive it smooth and consistently. That's what you're looking for with these setups. You can see if we look at my base setup for this track, base Charlotte, I start with the wheel spacing at 1750. I've been doing races where I move that right rear out to 1850 to 19 for qualifying now. Understand, when I turn, I'm turning that much. I mean, it's like 3 degrees. But if you can do it, it's super fast. It's really, really fast. So you're gonna have to kind of work yourself to that, because it's not gonna happen the first time you go sailing off and you've got that right rear all the way out and you've got this thing loosened up like that. You're just gonna spin. Okay, so kind of work yourself to it. But you'll notice that as you do that, and you can keep that car nice and straight and smooth, not only are you gonna see your individual lap times get faster, you're gonna notice, which is a lot of the testing I did, you're gonna notice that your 10 lap average is gonna go down, that your 20 lap average is gonna go down. I was even doing 30 lap runs, consistent 30 lap runs, one groove just over and over and over and over again. You're gonna notice that goes down as well. Okay? So that's what we're looking to do. All right? Now, in terms of base setups, I'm going to give you guys one right now. This is kind of where I've been starting with a lot of I don't want to say new tracks, but a lot of the stuff that I've been doing now with my newer setups. This is kind of where I've been starting. Okay, so I've been going thousands on the left, and then 1.25 on the right. Okay. I will have the right front at even or 1. It just depends on how much crossweight I want. That's really all it depends on. Okay. The shocks basically are pretty much the same. Okay. I don't really do much with the shocks in terms of the base setup. You'll notice on the right rear, on the base setups that you guys have that I gave you, there's some differences, between tracks, but overall, it's basically almost always a straight 5. Sometimes with the 360s, you might want to actually have maybe a 6/5. That's only for like really tacky tracks. Other than that, if it's really slick, you might have like a 4/6. I mean, that's like your range. It's a pretty tight area. Just know, if you run a straight 5 shock on your right rear, 90% of the time you're gonna nail the shock on the right rear for these sprint cars. It's one thing that you could like set and forget. I mean, it really is, because straight 5 shock is really pretty much where it's at for these cars. Very rare exceptions do I do, where I really like tie it down. keep in mind we're talking about 360s right now. We'll get to 410s in a minute, because the 410s, that's a different story, but 360s, okay? The ride heights for the 360s are different now that I run, okay? So I will actually move that out to 18, 13 inches of stagger still. And the ride heights are a lot lower. I'm usually going to start out somewhere around 14.18, right? Somewhere between 14 and 14.2 on the right rear, and 12.5 to 12.7 on the left rear. That's the ride heights I run on the 360s. 360s are actually reverse of the 410s in terms of, with the 410s, as the track slicks off, you actually want to increase the ride height. With the 360s, as the track slicks off, you actually want to decrease the ride height. I've noticed that. I actually noticed that because I had done qualifying and stuff with my base setup where I had the ride heights up higher and did really, really well. And was in a hurry one time, and I had made a bunch of adjustments on just the base setup, and I softened the bars, or excuse me, that wasn't the time I softened the bars, because that was when I changed tested the shocks. Oh, I put in fuel. And it was just like for the heat race or something like that. Put in fuel, and the car was faster in the heat race than it was in qualifying. And I was like, what the hell? And then I noticed the ride heights, did it again for the main, left it at those ride heights, which was basically what it is now, 12 and a half, and I think that comes out to like 14 and an eighth or something like that, 14 and 3/8 or something. But and it was like one of the best cars I'd driven on a dry slick track in terms of the 360. I was like, oh, okay. And when I went and found my my notes, my Maxim notes, it right on. Like, it was literally the same thing. My heights were, my ride heights were too high for the tacky, but in terms of the dry slick, that was almost right on. I was at 14.2 and 12 like 6 or something like that, and the notes say 12 and a half and 14 something, I don't know, 14.15 or something like that. So I run lower ride heights on the 360, and it definitely feels more stable. Okay, so this is basically what I will start off with in terms of the base setup now. The car is a lot more free, drives a lot more easier, it's got a lot more tilt in it, you don't have to put nearly as much wheel into it, and it's fast. It's really fast if you can drive it. Like I said, it's going to be more free, okay? And you could put those bars on it and those shocks on it and do nothing but change the wheel spacing and reset your ride heights with the fuel, and then maybe adjust your wing a little bit, tiny bit, and be fast. Okay? So this is a good base setup to start with. All right? As the track slicks off, I will move these up in the front. I will go back to what we typically run. You'll notice that I don't run a lot of cross weight. The cross weight I've really just kind of stopped. I don't use it. We talked about it in the last stream that I did, where I said if the car felt really twitchy, that's from that front end being up. That makes the car really twitchy. Okay, you get the same effect when you have the nose wing at like 30. You'll notice the car is really twitchy. What'll happen is it feels like when you turn, that front gets planted, and it does because of the wing. It gets planted, and it's actually like lifting the rear end up and like swiveling it around. It's the same type of feeling. It's a different effect, but it's the same type of feeling when you have that front end jacked up. What happens is the car is darting all around because that front end's up. You got all that weight on the rear, which is what you want. But the problem is that when you're having to drive like this, when those front wheels catch, that's when you do that stuff where you fall off the top. So lowering the front end will make the car feel much more stable. Much more stable. And like I said, as long as you got that left front higher than the right rear, at least for me, you're good. I mean, and it could be like by 0.1, Okay, like I literally, it's good. So that will really make a huge difference for a lot of you who have been having issues with the car, you know, kind of darting, being real twitchy. Okay, now crossweight, I want to talk about this because I was running like 48, you know, 47 to 49, like 47 and a half, like 49%, depending on the track. I was running a lot of crossweight. I don't run that much crossweight anymore. In fact, I don't run like more than 47% anymore. And if I do, it's a really special circumstance. The more for me, the more crossweight I run, if I'm going to run a lot of crossweight, that means I'm going to want to run the bottom. So the more crossweight you have, the freer the car is going to be getting in, but the tighter it's going to be coming off. And so what that means is that you've got to make sure especially if you're running the bottom, you've got to make sure that by the apex, by the center of that corner, you've got that car set. If you are still trying to turn it, what's going to happen is you're going to slide out and the car's going to break loose and you're going to be sideways coming out the corner. So the whole reason you want to do that is you want to have that car, you want to be looking down, I always talk about, you want to be looking down the other straightaway by the time you reach the apex, because that means that you're set up to come out straight. All right? You want to try to drive off under the slick. So if you guys watched the charity race when I was running the bottom, that was literally what I was getting down there. You know, Devin talks about how he wouldn't see me because he'd be like halfway and all of a sudden I'd come swooping down in front of him. And that was because I would come swooping down. I was almost diamonding off the corner and then coming out off the bottom underneath the slick. Now, you don't have to do that, but you want to make sure whichever angle you take, by the time you're at the center, the apex, that the car is rotated. You don't want to be putting any more left wheel into it. If you do, it's going to slide. You're going to just have the ass end slide out on you. Okay? So the more crossweight that you have in the car, the easier it's going to be to get it rotated in the first section and have it come off straight, if you do it correctly, on the exit. All right. Now, you can run the minimum amount of crossweight, okay, and you're actually not going to notice that much of a difference. And the reason I say that is because you've got that wing, right? I call it the barn door. You got that big ass thing up here that's catching all that air and it's causing a lot of dynamic left side weight. And so a lot of that is being forced down onto the left side as it is. This is why I talk about the crossweight on the bottom. The reason why I talk about, having more crossweight on the bottom is because you're slowing down so much, you don't have the force pushing that side down like you do on the top. On the top, you're hardly going to notice the difference in crossweight. You might notice it by the center because the car is going to want to shoot to the wall, but overall you're not going to really notice a whole lot of difference in the way the car feels. On the bottom you will, okay? And so what I like to do is I actually have started running a lot less crossweight, and I actually like the way that it feels better on the top because I don't get that push coming out of the corner the way that I drive. And so I try to stay somewhere between like 44, maybe even 43, and 45, like high 45s, 46%. That's where I try to stay at for my crossweight. I do add a little bit more crossweight as the track gets slick, just like I did before, but not a lot, okay? It's not a lot at all. And a lot of the crossweight that gets added is basically because I'm adding fuel. So, it's not like I'm winding it in there intentionally, all right? Everything that I try to focus on now really has to do with the dynamic weight shift of the weight shifting of the car. Okay, so that is the rundown on like what I'm doing now with my crossweight. Okay, and my base setup. Now, like I said, the shocks are basically the same in terms of what I start with. There are rare instances, like I said, where I'll change a couple of things. I might have this as a 5 on the bump instead of a 6. But overall, the shocks are going to be the same, okay? So let's get into the big changes now, because this is where things are going to get really interesting. Rear bars. The rear bars, when the track slicks off, this is the biggest changes that I've made. I've gone completely the opposite direction of what I was doing before. You guys remember, we started with thousands. We would go to stiffer bars for our feature setup. I am going the opposite way now. I'm going to softer bars. What I discovered is the stiffer bars provide you much more stability, especially with all that fuel. That's really the key. So when you go out for a race and you've got 20 gallons of fuel in there and you've got those 10 1/4 bars in the back, that car is much more stable than it is if you go out there with 975s in the back. Much more stable. But here was the problem that I was running into. My car would fall off, and it was falling off pretty substantially, particularly with the 410s. But it was falling off. And what I've realized is, what I discovered is that if I start with the softer bars, the first few laps are definitely harder to drive. I'm not gonna lie. So you want to make sure that you have some wing into it to help the car stabilize. But the setup gets better as the race goes on. That is by far the most important thing that I have discovered with these setups. Okay, I used to try to just maintain that when you start running the softer bars in the back, right? If you can get through the first 5 to 10 laps, okay, the car gets better as the race goes on. Here's the deal. You're going to have those official races where you're never going to burn off any fuel because you got a bunch of schmucks who cause a bunch of wrecks, and you start the race with 20 gallons and you end the race with 18 because you only had 5 laps. Those races, it's a, you know what I mean? You're going to be wishing that you had ran the stiffer setup because you could have just ran away from everybody the first 10 laps, right? I always talk about it's not right or wrong. Everything is a trade-off, okay? And so the softer the bars, what I've discovered is the more mechanical grip, the harder it is to handle. But once that fuel starts to burn off, you get to this point where the car starts to really, really come in. Not only that, it also seems like for some reason that you can run more wing with the softer bars and it doesn't slow you down as much. Now, I have not tested that to know that, I have not done an apples to apples test on that, but it sure seems that way. Okay, so you can kind of test that yourself, but I noticed that I don't seem to get penalized nearly as much when I put some wing into those softer bars than when I do with the stiffer bars. Like I said, that charity race that I was running at Eldora, right? I mean, there was only 2 cars faster than me. One of them, the guy owns Rocket Setups. The other one is a pro. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? They had a combined I rating of like 10,000. So, you know, the car was really, really fast, and I was running the wing at 2. All right. So you can run the softer rear end, and the car is going to feel, after the first few laps, it's going to feel really good. Not only that, if you move the wing back, it's going to feel good from the get-go. You just need to remember you might have to move it forward as that fuel burns off, because like I said, the car is going to actually get better as the race goes on. Okay, so let me show you what a feature setup for me will look like. So we'll keep, like I said, we'll keep the front basically like we've been doing. As the track slicks off, I like that 1050 bar in the right front. Okay, I just do. And then I like to put the 10 1/4 in the left front. When you run split in the car or tilt in the car, the more tilt you run, the easier it is to get the car into the corner. All right. When the track slicks off, though, we want to take some tilt out. Okay, because we don't want the car to just slide across. We don't want it to just slide across the track. We want it to
plant, right? We want that thing when it goes into the corner to actually push down and plant. We don't want it to just kind of slide. When you've got that tilt in it on a heavy tacky track, the track is what's basically doing it for you. When that track blows off, and it blows off all the time with these cars, right? You need that car to plant when you go into that corner. And so I like to take tilt out of it. And since I like that 1050 bar in the right front, when it slicks off, I put the 10 1/4 because I just don't want that much tilt in the front of the car. That's the main reason I do it. Okay, you don't have to run a 1050. You could run a 10 1/4. All right, you could. What I will tell you is, because I've had a lot of people ask me about this, the right front, the higher and stiffer you make the right front, the tighter the car is all the way around the track. Not just on entry, not just on the exit, everywhere. Everywhere. The tighter it is, everywhere. So if you run it like I've had it where it's 1050 jacked all the way up, understand, like, you can't make that right front any tighter than it already is. Okay? So if you're like, look, Tommy, I want the car to be a little bit more free, then drop that thing down. You know, run a 10 1/4 in it. That's perfectly fine. All right? But for me, like I said, I like to have some split, and I like that 1050, so that's what I run. In the rear, it's a different story. So I have been going down to 975s. You can also do this. You can also go 1,000 in the right rear and a 975 in the left rear. That is also something that I do. It will depend on the track and the wear. But for me, as the track slicks off, I don't want any tilt in the rear of my car. I want the bars to be even. And so I will go 975s across the back. If the track is like really slick, like this track's 100%, on this track, I would actually go to 950s. I would go as soft as I possibly could. Okay? And I still would keep the ride height the same. Now, you're going to actually discover that getting the ride height might be a challenge on some tracks. Like if you're trying to do this at USA, might be a little bit of a problem because of all the fuel you have to run. As you can see, like the right rear, I've got almost jacked all the way up, and we're just now where I want it to be. So you might notice that if you're doing that at a big track where you gotta have a lot of fuel, Eldora is another one, Knoxville, right, where you're putting a lot of fuel in it, it might be kind of hard to get to the ride height. Understand, that's okay. Just get it as close as you can. As soon as you start burning off fuel, it's gonna raise back. It'll raise up, right? If you look at this right here, you got 1252 and 415. You know, just burning off a couple gallons, you can see how much higher it's gonna get. So if you can't get it right where you want it, that's all right. Once the fuel burns off, it'll get there. Just add some wing to it so it'll stabilize the car, because if you have that thing low, and it's going to be low, it's going to feel really, really weird. Really, really weird. Okay? Now, the other thing that I do is I put the left bump at 3, and I'll put that at 9. That's when I really want to tie down the ass end. I'll also put this at like 5 and 7 for the 360s. Okay? And I will move this in as well. I will also drop the stagger. Forgot that. This was the base setup. I forgot that. So, yeah, there we go. You can see 45% cross weight. Okay? And this is what I'll be running on a really this is a super slick track. Okay? We're talking, you know, your World of Thunder tracks, right? Those tracks that are like just completely blown off by heat race number 3. Okay? What's the other league that's like? Well, most of the leagues are like that, right? So this is your super slick track setup. This is what I've been running. Works pretty well. Actually, do a couple of laps. And one thing that you really want to understand, throttle control is key. So I've been trying to figure out how I can get these setups to where I can run wide open around the top in the feature, right? When I first figured out the setups and get it to where it was comfortable. And I actually discovered that, no, actually it's a lot better to slow down and be smooth than it is to try to hammer that, cushion wide open the entire time. Because for me at least, I'll almost always hit the wall, but the slip that you have, the loss of traction will really cost you in speed. It'll cost you a lot. So let me run a couple of quick laps here to show you how this works. So you can see we're really loose, right? And I just hit the tire. So let's put the wing into her, a couple little clicks. Let's try her again. Kind of overshot my line there, but I forgot to talk about the gear too. I'm actually running shorter gears too. Not right now, I didn't change it, but I'll talk about that in a second. Overshot my line again. Go to the top. So you can see how bumpy it is. That's the thing with the soft bars, is that it's super bumpy. And so you really want to, don't be afraid to move the wing back. You can move it back to like 5 and you're okay when the track is this bad. Because it's better to slow down a little bit than to hit the wall. I don't know why I picked 100% track. That was stupid. Then I look like a clown. But you can see, if you can run it, get used to it. It actually has quite a bit of grip. As I hit the wall. It actually has quite a bit of grip. Contrast that, I don't need to hit the wall anymore. Contrast that with the stiffer setup that I had, right? The 1025s, which worked, but it slid around. It slid around a lot more, especially as the fuel especially as the fuel burned off and the track got slicker. For whatever reason, that setup went away. This one gets better. Now, like I said, the first few laps can be a handful. They really can, especially on a track that's this bad. You're going to really have to take it easy. Really, you want to make sure that you do some practice and some testing with this to get used to it, okay? I literally did a midget race a little while ago. I probably should have done some more sprint car practicing before I just got on here and made myself look like a clown, but that's okay. I'm used to that by now. So that's the like extreme setup that I will use, like I said, on like super slick tracks. Now, for the official races that I've been running lately, okay, it's not nearly that that crazy. All right, so and so wait a second. Where did all the... You guys, you've been asking questions. This literally just popped up. I mean, I got all these people, all these questions here. I'm so sorry, man. Waylon, thank you for the stars. 360 and 410 races. Mine were at 22 and 24, just pulled back as needed, but the chassis is also tuned to allow for that. Yes, Shay, that's the thing, is you're looking for the balance of the wing and the mechanical grip. Okay, notice that too when Shay opened the practice. Yeah, Is there any indicator about wing position? No, Gary, there really isn't any indicator about wing position. So if you're talking about indicator in the sense of where it's located, just look out. I mean, like you'll be able to actually see the tip of the wing. If you're talking about, is there a certain point like an indication when you should add more angle? For me, on this track, the way this track is, I would actually run my wing at 26 or 27. If the track was this slick and I was doing an actual race, I would actually add more angle to my wing, and I would run it. I would start the race at like 3. Okay, that's me. All right, understand the one click of that wing, just one notch of that wing can be the difference from your car feeling good and then all of a sudden you pushing and jumping the cushion and hitting the wall like I did at Eldora in the charity race. Okay, like it's literally that much. So you want to test this stuff. You really want to test it. You guys, I really do wish. Okay, like my intention when I did this masterclass, my intention was to give you guys these setups and this be like, hey, this is all you need. Go out and take over the iRacing dirt world. Like that was my goal. Unfortunately, that is not what has happened. You know what I mean? Like I really wish that I had this cure-all setup that was like, this is all you need. There you go. Take it and run with it. And unfortunately, that's not the case. You're gonna have to test this stuff. You just are to get it to fit your driving style. Like I said, if you look at me and Shay, right? Shay's here, I'm here. Shay could give me a setup. I'm not going to drive it as good as Shay. I'm not Shay, right? Like I'm just not going to. Alex Bergeron can give me a setup. I'm not going to drive it as good as him. So you've got to get it to fit your driving. Now, as upsetting and as frustrating as that can be, because it's like, damn, I have to actually dial this into my driving, that should also make a lot of you feel really, really good, because that means that there isn't some secret unicorn setting or adjustment that the pros are doing that you're not, right? That they know and you don't, and that's why they've got the golden ticket to the Pro Series, right? That's why they're a pro and you're not. Do they do something that we don't know yet, that we haven't figured out? Possibly, yeah. I think they do. I think they've got some insane concoction of setup that allows them to drive those slick tracks. Would it help us right now? No, because we're not as good as them, right? Like let's just be honest, right? I don't drive as good as Heilman or Simmelman or Bergeron or pick your pro, right? Kendall Tucker, the Cabrera brothers. I don't. So it doesn't matter. I've got to get to that point first. The only way I can get to that point is making this stuff fit my driving style and growing along with it. So yes, it sucks that a lot of that stuff I gave, and like I said before, if that stuff that I gave you is working, then keep using it. Don't change it. Don't mess it up. The main reason I'm doing this is because I don't want you guys to see me do a stream and I'm running a different setup now and you think, fucking Tommy, man, he gave us this other stuff and it's not even what he runs. Like I don't want to be that guy. Okay, because I'm not that guy. I don't want to be seen as that guy because I'm not that guy. So that's why I'm showing you guys this stuff. And also because I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, Tommy, this is what the car feels like to me. How can I fix it? Okay, and that's the stuff that I want to cover. The ride heights will piss you off on mine. Shay, I'm guessing that you probably have your rear end slammed all the way to the ground. That would be my guess. That you don't have to answer, but that would be my guess, that you've got it slammed all the way to the ground. Because I've seen pro setups before, and that's what they do. They slam it to the ground. Or if you don't have it slammed all the way to the ground, you've got like a 2.5 inch split between the left rear and the right rear, because that's something else that I've seen. Those are the two things that I have seen with a couple of the pros or people that are at that level. They might not have a pro license, but they're at that level. It's what I've seen with their setups. They have this ridiculous split in the rear, or they've got it slammed all the way down. So, you know, whether or not that's what yours is, I would imagine, well, I've seen you drive. You're just a badass driver, so it doesn't matter. But oh, I don't have it. So I don't have it on here. I was actually shown a setup from the Rocket setups. Somebody who has them had actually talked to me about them, and I'm not going to share what was in it because it's just not right to do that. The guy who has those setups, he charges money for them, and I don't want to do that. That would be messed up. So just know that what I do and what they do are 180. It's complete polar opposites. We share nothing in terms of our ideas and the way we think a setup should be for a sprint car. Nothing. And I drove that setup and I could hardly get the thing around the track. I hated it. Had I paid money for it, I'd have been pissed because it doesn't fit my driving at all. At all. Does that mean there's something wrong with my driving? No. Does that mean there's something wrong with his setup? No. Right? That setup and my driving style just don't mesh. So when it comes to you and your setup, right, it's just a matter of getting that right balance that you need to be able to run that car fast, smooth, and consistent. That's the key. Consistent. Go look at the results from the charity race if you can even pull them up. But go look at the lap times that like Hayden or Justin or Shay were laying down, right? Every single lap, those guys are within a tenth. You know what I mean? Like their fastest lap is 13.9. Their slowest lap is 14.05. You know what I mean? Like they're all right there within each other. Where my fastest lap is 13.9, but my slowest lap is 14.3, right? Like I've got 0.4 of a second difference. Being able to hit that lap time just over and over and over again, that's what you're looking for with the setups. And to bring this back around to what we were talking about, these softer bars in the rear for the feature, for me, I've been able to do that since I started doing this. Okay? I've been able to do that. Now, the feature setup that I will run for, let's say, official races, right? So like your typical official race, I will do something that looks like this. And you guys, I'm sorry, but I have to keep refreshing this screen to see the questions. So we're going to talk about the rear gear right now. Is it Gatlin or Gate? I'm going to call you Gatlin just because there's a Gatlin gun and that's badass. Wait, this stuff is going to constantly change. It is going to constantly change, and that's the thing, Waylon, is even though they're not coming in and making wholesale changes to the tracks or to the cars, the little updates and changes that they've made to the cars, or the little patches or whatever it is that they do, I've noticed changes in the way my car feels with the setup. So I nothing's gonna stay the same. You're gonna have to constantly be adapting to it. Yeah, no problem, man. Up, Shay, pretty close to as low as it'll go. Not quite all the way though. Yeah, that's what I thought, Shay. Takes a lot of practice to control in case it yes, it does take a lot of practice. And I forgot about that, Shay, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Was it Gary who asked? The black box, you can see your wing angle in the black box. Here, let me show you real quick. What is that, F8? Yeah, F8, in-car adjustments, you can see it. Now you can actually change it with your mouse, but I would recommend putting it on your steering wheel so you can just do it with the press of a button or your paddles or something. I would recommend doing something like that, because you don't want to be trying to do it while you're driving. That's almost impossible. So exactly, I have like 12 teammates, and I think only 2 of us run it that low. The others don't like it. Yeah, exactly, Shay. That's, you know what? That's it. And look, me and I mean, just for an example, and it's not just with these cars. Me and Waylon and Devin were testing late model setups Saturday, and I have a whole Word document full of notes on adjustments and what the car felt like and what it did for all these different changes. But not only that, I have how it felt for Waylon, how it felt for me, and how it felt for Devin, because not one of us was able to take a setup and go, here you go, and us run and be like, oh, felt great. It's like, feels pretty good, but I think I'm gonna try this. Well, I like that change, but I actually like it better this way, right? Like, it's the same thing with these cars. The same thing. Those guys in the Pro Series are not all running the same setup. They're not. They're just not. So, don't think that you can't be fast because you don't have like the secret ingredient. I can promise you right now that the stuff that I've given you and shown you, you can win with, because there's drivers. I win with it, and I mess up all the time. So like, you can definitely win with it. Okay, it does work. Okay, this stuff that I'm showing you is just another way of it's another way of reaching this. It's a different path to the same destination. All right, it really is. So let's talk about the other change that I've been making as I've been dropping these rear ends down. The other change that I've been making is with the gear ratio. I've been going to a shorter gear, especially with the 360s. Not so much the 410s, because the 410s have so much more power. Pretty much with the 410s, what I've been doing lately is I'm just not going to that taller gear as the track slicks off. So it used to be I would start with the gear, right? Let's say for Charlotte in practice and for qualifying, I run a 567. And then when we get to the feature, I would drop down to a 555. So that way I can basically hold it wide open and I don't have to worry about, I get less tire spin. I don't do that anymore. A couple of reasons. First, when you do this, the problem is if you do get tire spin, meaning like you hit the slick, when it catches traction, it really bogs down and it can cause you to really get out of shape, okay? Or at least it does me. It causes me to get really out of shape if I miss the line. Second is that with the shorter gear, it gives you a much bigger range in terms of your throttle control. So at the Eldora race, for example, that I just ran a couple nights ago, the charity race, right, with the pros in it, I was rolling out of the throttle going into the corner and on the exit of the corner. And I was running the high line at Eldora. All right, and I was in a 360. I mean, it doesn't have to be pedal to the floor. It doesn't. And like I said, if I didn't suck at restart so bad, I would have been right there with those guys, or at least closer. I mean, they had about a straightaway on me. But if you watch the race, you'll see green flag, and they just vroom, and I'm still going because I'm horrible at restarts, horrible. So the shorter gear allows me to roll in and out of the throttle more and have that low end to pick speed up quickly. You know, when I'm running that taller gear and that thing bogs down, it makes me, want to just stay in the throttle more and more and more and more. And I find myself overdriving the car. With that shorter gear in it, it allows me a lot more leeway and I can actually roll in and out of the throttle and I'm not sacrificing that bottom end. Keep in mind, I'm talking about on a slick track, right? So you're thinking like, well, man, Tommy, I mean, that just means that when I do hit the gas, I'm going to spin the tires more. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. If you control the throttle correctly, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. The guy who sells the setups, right, the one that I was explained to me, the gear that he runs at this track, 570. For their feature setup, slick track, 570. So that's way shorter than what I would ever even conceive of running on a track that slick. But since I've been doing it, since I've been trying that shorter gear, and I don't go that short, like that to me that's extreme, but since I've been doing that, I've noticed a huge difference in terms of being able to apply a lot more throttle control. And not only that, but it's also improved my trail braking, because I'm not having to make sure that I maintain that 75% throttle when I'm trail braking, because I'm worried about the motor bogging down. That's not the case. Now I've got a little bit more room to play with, and it allows me to be able, especially if I'm running the bottom, it allows me to pull out of the corner a lot better. All right. So when it comes to the gear, what I have discovered is that you want to run as short a gear as you can, right? That's going to take you right before the limit. Like, you want to be right at the end of the straightaway. You want to be like 100 RPMs away from the limiter. That's what I've been running. Try it, see if you like it. You might not, but something else to consider, okay? Because that is something I've been doing. That's also more for the 360s. Like I said, for the 410s, there's a lot of tracks where it's a 486 gear. Like, that's what you're running. All right. So that's another thing that I have changed. And when I have combined that with the softer bars, and we're going to go over the feature setup that I run at a lot of the official races right now. When you combine that with the softer bars, and actually let's do this. Let's leave. Let's actually put this at something close to a feature racetrack. Be about 50%. I don't know what time of day they're going to run this week at Charlotte, but sunset's fine. But when you combine that gear with the softer bars, I've noticed a really big improvement, like I said, in the way the car feels, in the way that it handles, and then just my overall consistency. Even with the 360s, you can apply throttle control. All right, let me refresh this again, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, sweet. Okay, Gatlin, when you say, yep, that's right, does that mean that your name is Gatlin? Is that what you were saying that's right about? I hope so, because that's an awesome name. That's awesome. Okay. So 50% track. Right here is about what I've been running. So this is basically my new feature setup, okay? Except for here, it would be about like this. All right, sweet. I like it. Right on. Your name is awesome, man. I like that. Okay. So, for the bars and the rear shocks and the spacing, this is typically what I've been running. Somewhere between 1650 and 17 on the right rear, depending on how slick the track is and your driving style. Left rear wheel spacing, I almost always put it to 14 for the feature, almost always. To me, the car feels more stable with that left rear wheel at 14. On the bigger tracks, on the smaller ones like Kokomo or Fairbury, Limaland, however the hell you say it, Lanier, or whatever, the smaller tracks, I'll put it at like 1375. But the bigger ones, Knoxville, Eldora, Charlotte, I'll put it at 14. Okay, so hey, thanks for following, Shelby. So except for here, it would be about like, don't want to hear that. Now the bars, basically, like I showed you guys earlier, I would start with with something that looks like this, you know, the 10 and a quarters and the thousands. And then what I will do a lot of times is I will make this 1,000 and make that 10 and a quarter, and then bump that up and do something like that. I'll have thousands across the rear and that up front. As you can see, it looks a lot like the base setup that I gave to everybody. All I'm doing is adjusting my ride heights and my wheel spacing and my stagger, and now you've got the feature setup. Now on tracks that are really slick, so Eldora, Volusia, because Volusia, it's like you're driving on sand. I don't understand what it is, but that track just feels super slick to me. What's another one that gets really, really slick? Fairbury, Lanier, those ones I'll actually go down to 975. There are rare instances where I will go 1,000 in the right rear, 975 in the left rear, or I will go reverse split and I will put 1,000 in the left rear and 975 in the right rear. But it'll be some combination of those. Okay? And you're not gonna, there's not one that's faster than the other. Do you guys remember when I did the bar test, I tested all kinds of bar combinations, all kinds of bar combinations on the 410s. And the fastest combination I found was 1050s in the right front, and left rear, and a 10 and a quarter in the right rear. Now that was on the 410s, and it was only faster by like a half a tenth or something like that. Okay? So, and when I had tried the softer ones, like it felt horrible. But that was because I hadn't figured out the shocks and all this other stuff that I do with it. And so when it comes to the softer bars, it's really, or the different combinations, I mean, like, you know, running split or reverse split or straight across, it's really going to be based on how the car feels for you and what you're looking to get out of it. I'll tell you my rule of thumb, or what I look for. Hey, thanks for following, Ronnie. For me, on tracks that are flat, so you look at Knoxville, for example, I try to run some tilt because the track is so flat. I want that, I still want, even though I don't want it to be leaning as much on the left, I do still want it to be leaning on the left. Okay, so I'll do 1,000 in the right rear and a 975 in the left rear. If it's super slick, then I'll go 950 and 975, right? Like I'll try something like that. If it's a super high bank track, you look at Eldora or Lima Land, right? I'll actually go the opposite direction. So I'll put 1,000 in the left rear and 975 in the right rear. And what that does is that helps the car, while it's up against that banking, it helps the car, it kind of levels it off more. So it's not tilted so much, and so you don't get that fall off the top, right? It helps the car drive straighter, because when you have those high bank tracks, especially something like Lima Land, right, where you got that bump in the middle, you can get snapped around really, really easy. And when you're running tilt in the car, it can happen that much more. So I like to run the reverse split because it helps level off the car and give me that nice drive out of the corner. All right. So let's take a look at this real quick. Let's do this. We'll just go 975s here. Keep this really, really simple. Let's get we got 19, should be about 18 gallons, I think, for this track. Or no, maybe it's 19. I can't remember. Let's get our ride heights where we want it. That. Oops, 1, 2, 1. Boom, we're good. Okay. Oh, and you can see I got the wing 22 and 24. Somebody asked, do I ever mess with the front wing? No. I have tried that. I did some testing with it and I don't like it. What I can tell you is this. This is what I can tell you. Once the track slicks off, the testing that because I have done recent testing with the nose wing. The recent testing that I did with it, I did not notice the front wing causing the car to be slower, right? So I've said before in the past where it's like keep it as flat as you can get it, because all it does is slow you down. When the track is fresh, qualifying, heat race, that seems to hold true. When the track slicks off, not that much, because you're trying to get grip, right? The main thing is grip and consistency. So if the nose wing helps you achieve that, then put the nose wing in it. I personally don't like the nose wing when I have it at an angle. For me, it makes the car feel like it makes the car feel like it's shoving down and it's turning. Hey, go! I'm live.
You ordered something.
Yeah, go please, and take your toys with you.
No, you ordered that.
Okay, great. Go, please. Gotta love kids. Sorry about that. So, I personally don't like the nose wing. I just leave it at 22 at all times. So, yeah, sorry, John. I did miss it the first time. I just saw that. So, and there's one of the great drivers running 1,000 across the front with 3 turns and a 1050 in the rear with negative 3 turns. That's why I love what Tommy is doing. It does. You should change your first run. Fantastic. Hey, thank you, Shay. I really appreciate that, and it's absolutely 100% true. Like I said before, and like Shay said, there's pros, and they've got completely different setups. I mean, this really is driver preference. The more that I'm discovering, the key is, like I said before, other than trying to keep the wing flat and forward, and keeping the left front above the right rear. Other than that, the key is finding that balance for you and knowing how to do that. Like, I can lead you in the right direction, but ultimately you're going to be the one who has to get there. Especially if you're not someone, who just was able to get my setups and be like, oh my God, I just went and, I can't remember what driver it is, but it might be Jeremy. If I got the name wrong, I'm sorry. But posting stuff, sending me stuff and posting stuff in Discord all the time, like, hey, another win, man, boom, another win. And it's just like, thanks for the setup. Like, he's just crushing it all the time. So unless you're like that, you're going to have to adjust this stuff. You just are. And you can see, even for me, like, I'm the one who created those setups for myself initially, and I'm changing them because as my driving has gotten better, it's still kind of bad, but as it's gotten better, I've noticed that this stuff is helping me more. Okay, so first, actually, let me do this. Let me save this real quick. Save this as the soft. There we go. And then let's go to the feature setup. All right, so here's my feature setup. This is what I gave you guys. Let's run a few laps with this just so you can see. And I'm not going to waste any time trying to run the bottom or anything like that. You guys already know I can run the bottom. We don't need to show anything. Let's just run a couple laps on the top so you can see. You can see the car is actually a little bit loose. A lot of that has to do with the fuel in the back. So this is one of those instances where I would move the wing back 1 or 2 notches. I did 2, just to kind of help the car stabilize. And basically, you just want to run this. I mean, if you're running the top, you want to basically hook that cushion and run it all the way around. It gave me a contact. I didn't even hit the wall. Right? So I mean, you just. Basically, you want to get your right rear on that cushion and just run all the way around. 14.0 was my fast lap. Okay, let's put the other setup on. I mean, I only ran a couple laps, but still. 14. Oh, I guess I did hit the wall. Whoops. My bad. Not the first, won't be the last. So, here's what I've been running lately. I'm gonna move the wing back to 2. Because this is going to it's going to feel way different, so I want to try to stabilize it. I don't know what lap time I ran. It wasn't faster than the other one because it didn't change. At least I don't think it did. But let's see. Oh. 14:03.1, 14:03.8. So within 2/100ths of a second. You know what I mean? Completely different setups. Now, what I can tell you, for me, without the shadow of a doubt, is it the shadow or a shadow? Without a shadow of a doubt, this setup, as the feature goes on, for me, gets better, where the other one falls off. The 1025s, the stiffer setup for me, as the track slicks off and that fuel burns off, that the car gets worse for me. And so I end up having to put more wing into it, where this one, I can actually start taking wing out of it or just leave it where it is. So this setup gets better. And as you can see, I can run the same lap times. Now, it can be harder to handle, the softer one, when you're running up. Shay can attest to this. I mean, running the wall at Charlotte, I don't care what setup you have, it's flipping bumpy, right? And so the stiff bars for me actually help with that some. The softer bars, it makes it a really rough ride. But if you can get through the first few laps, right, and just put some wing into it, if you can survive that, this will actually get better. At least it does for me, right? So, like I said before, test it. Don't just go, hey, Tommy's got a new setup, I'm gonna go try this on a feature, official race. Don't do that, please. All right, because I don't want you going out there and having trouble and being like, SOB Tommy, right? Like, please don't do that. Test it, but try it. All right, just give it a shot. Okay. The main thing is that as long as you're keeping with the concept that we've been talking about, right? Keeping the car balanced, keeping it comfortable so you can be smooth, you're good. And you can see, look, I was running a different gear too. I had a 567 in there. Hey, thank you very much for subscribing, boss. Oh, wait. Actually, I don't know if he's watching. I think he might have done that on YouTube. I'm not streaming this on YouTube. Well, thank you anyways. I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry, man. If you're watching, I'm really sorry. Limkeys. Any other questions? Oh, no. Okay. So, those are some different things that you can try. All right. Now, we just covered the 360s. Okay, we got to actually dive into the 410s. So, when I want to, if you're not writing this down, okay, get a piece of paper and write this down. All right, unless you already know all this stuff. But I want to tell you the adjustments that you can make to this car if you got stuff, if you got certain problems or conditions. All right, and let me get my notes up. Where the heck is it? Oh, there we go. Where'd it go? Oh. Okay, so if the car feels twitchy, right? Lower the front end, okay? You can do it evenly. You can just try. I always say to start with the right front. Drop the right front down. That'll help a lot of times, especially if we're talking about the base setups, the setups that I've given you. That right front is always jacked all the way up. So first thing, if the car feels twitchy, it's kind of darting all over the place, if it's falling off the top when you're running the cushion, it keeps wanting to fall off the top, drop this right front, drop it down, take 2 turns out of it, drop it down to one, to just 1 turn. Okay, keep in mind when you do that, you're going to have to reset the ride height in the left rear, because that changes the left rear. Okay, the other thing is that the shocks in the front could be too stiff. So one thing you can do is you can soften the bump on them. That'll help with it feel less twitchy, particularly the right front. Okay, a lot of the twitchiness that you will feel in the setup is going to be caused by this right front. So dropping that down and softening this shock up will have a huge effect. You could run a 10 and a quarter bar with one turn on the torsion bar stop and actually run a straight 5 shock, and you'll probably notice that this feels pretty damn comfortable, and it's not going to cost you in speed. Okay, it's just not. All right, so this is, in fact, it might even help some of you guys to have some rebound right here, because a lot of you talk about how the car wants to snap to the wall. You'll be driving and it gets sideways and all of a sudden it snaps to the wall. That's because this rebound is all the way, it's as low as it can go, and so the max amount of weight is going to that left rear, and as soon as that left rear bite kicks in, that's what it's doing, it's snapping. So doing that, putting a straight 5 shock on here, probably help quite a few of you guys who have been talking to me about that, the way the car feels. Now, if you're having an issue where the car it's cornering really nice, it feels like it's going into the corner well, but you're not getting that bite, that drive, what that is you want to actually look at increasing the ride height in the rear. Okay, look at what you've got it at, and then what I typically do is I'll add a turn. So if right now I'm driving, I'm like, man, this thing's sliding around too much, I would go to 275 and 75. I would try that, see how it felt, and then if it felt too much, then I would just back it down a half a turn on each wheel. I would try to keep it the same. Okay, that's something else that you might notice with these newer changes that I've made to the setups. All right. And the other thing is that, let me see, I gotta find it here. Oh, stiffening up the bars. So that's another thing. If the car feels like it's sliding around, right, getting into the corner nice, but you're not getting that drive, try stiffening up the bars. Okay, I can tell you this with absolute 100% confidence. Okay, if all you did was put 10 and a quarters up front, thousands across the rear, and just make some minor shock changes and wheel spacing adjustments, and just resetting the ride heights, right, changing your stagger, you're gonna be good. You'll be good. Like, the car will feel good. Okay. Once you get that base dialed in for you, everything else is just fine tuning. It really is. All right. So the new starting point that I use now, okay, you guys write this down, because you guys, I'm sorry, I would love to redo all these setups. I just can't. I just don't have the time right now, especially with the late model stuff that literally started today. I just don't have the time right now. Okay, so just write this down. All right. The new base setup that I start with is this: 10 and a quarters on the right, thousands on the left, and then I will do something like this, either a 5.4 on the left front shock and a 5.3 or 6.3 on the right front shock. I will usually drop the right front torsion bar stop to 1 turn, and then I will set the rear ride heights. I'll put the spacing out to like 18. Move this in. Stagger, I still use a lot of stagger. Haven't done anything with the air pressures. And then I will get the ride heights down to start of the night. I'll be at like 14.3 and 12.6. Feature, I get down to 12.5 and like 14.1. Okay, like right about there. That's where I would be at for the feature. And my cross weight, I'm somewhere between 45 and like 47 on the high, like 46.9 on the high end. Okay, that's where I try to reside now. Ronnie, How do I get into the private Facebook group? It's easy, man. Just ask. Wait, I thought Ronnie was in the private Facebook group. Ronnie, are you watching this right now? Must not be. Huh. I thought he was in here. I guess not. I thought Ronnie was in the... I don't need to hear myself. I think you like this one more, and it holds up towards the end more because you lowered it. When I build my stuff, I like to go about 2 extra gallons of what will be half for the full race to get everything where I want it. So if it takes 20 gallons to finish a race, I like to test with around 12. Oh, that could definitely be Shay, that could definitely be the case because it's lower and so it feels better as the race goes on because it's raising up. That you're 100% correct, because a lot of the problems that I was feeling with the car was it wasn't cornering worth a damn. It wouldn't corner. Like, it would go down the straightaway good, but it couldn't corner for crap, and a lot of that has to do with it being too high. So I think you're right. The higher ride height, as the fuel burned off, the car was getting too high. So I think you're right. And then also you factor that with the stiffer bars, and now I can't get any side. I was just getting no side bite out of the car. So now testing, that's not a bad idea. Typically what I'll do is I will, when I'm building a setup, I will put usually 10 gallons in the car. I do 15 on the 410s because they burn more, but for the 360s I'll actually do 10, and I get everything set, and then I'll drop the fuel. If I'm going to do like a qualifying test or like a heat race test or something like that, I'll drop the fuel down to what it needs to be, and then I'll reset my ride heights. Because for me, I want this stuff in the rear. I want the right rear and the left rear at a certain point. Like I want, a turn and a half more in the right rear than the left rear, or vice versa. All right. I can tell you right now, I almost never put more turns in the left rear than the right rear, especially now. And that's actually something we did in real life. I mean, we used to, like clockwork, we would put a turn into the right rear and take a turn out of the left rear as the night went on. I mean, just like clockwork. Didn't matter what else we did that. Turn in the right, turn out of the left. Just boom, 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 boom. And the car would be on a rail fast. And I don't do it like that here. For one reason is you've only got 3 turns to go. But another reason is it's a little too extreme. And for the most part, I do want a certain split between those two, and so I do something similar. I get it all set, and then I once I have it, like that's what I want, then in 10 gallons for the 360s, it seems to be that point for me. And then I drop the fuel down, get the ride height set, and drop them evenly. You guys a lot of times will hear me. I'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, like I'm counting it off because I want to make sure that it stays even. So. I know I'm weird, but anyway, so that's not a bad idea. And it's a good thing to test with fuel because having fuel in the car, it makes a huge difference. And because I've actually had some of you guys ask me this, and I'll go over this real quick before I load up the 410s and we go over that. Well, I can do it while we do it. Real quick, does anybody else do you got any questions about the 360s? Has anybody got any questions about the setups for the 360s? Because we've only covered the 360s. We haven't gotten to the 410s yet. Okay, so let's head over to the 410s. So a lot of people ask me, how should I practice or how should I test? If you are struggling with because a lot of people are like, dude, slick tracks, man, are so hard. I can't get a feel for them. When I get on a slick track feature race, it sucks. I can't do nothing, blah, blah. And first off, you need to understand is that that's not all the slick track. The track being slick plays a huge role in you having problems, but it's not just the track. Another big problem or another big, hindrance in that equation there is hindrance in that. Another big factor in that equation, I guess would be the way to say it, is the fuel. You see, running with 5 gallons, 6 gallons, that's nothing. Running with 20 gallons, that's hard. That's really hard. The first time you go sailing off into that corner and you got a car outside of you and you go sliding up into them, you hit the slick and you've got all that fuel, you're screwed. So I always tell people, if you're struggling, go to a 10 or 15, even 20% track and fill up your tank. Fill it up. Put 30 gallons into it and just go turn laps and get used to how it feels with all that fuel. And once you get used to that, then what you can do is put on your feature setup and go to a 30% track. And go, you don't have to go turn 30 laps, but go out and turn 10 laps, 15 laps, and after you turn 10 or 15 laps, come back in, fill up the tank again, right? And you don't have to put 30 gallons in it, but put it to where you would be for that feature race. Go out and turn 10 or 15 more laps. Keep coming back and driving it when it's got that full tank and get a good feel for it. And once you got a feel for it, go 10% higher, 10% higher. And do that until you can get onto a 60, 70, 100% track and you can go around and you're not just slamming into people or slamming the wall and everything else, right? That's how you learn to control that, because it's a completely different feeling. Completely different feeling. You guys might notice when I go into turn 1 of a race, man, I'm going in there nice and easy. I'm not trying to win it on the first turn, right? I got the wing back and I'm rolling out of the throttle going into that corner because I don't want to just go sailing off and take someone out. I know that all that fuel is going to make the car feel like it's sliding all over the place. So do that, and that will help you learn. It'll help you get used to all that fuel, because it takes time. It really does. All right, so let's bring up the 410s real quick. We've covered most everything. There's just slight changes with the 410s. So the number one thing with the 410s is the wing. That's the number one thing with the 410s for me is the wing. So being able to run this car with the wing all the way forward, not nearly as important as it is with the 360s. Because of the increase in horsepower, the wiggle room, I guess, that you have to add some wing to stabilize the car, it seems to be a little bit wider, right? You have a wider margin of error, I guess would be the way to say it. So I ran a race, well, it was 7 hours ago. I've been up since 2 a.m. 2 a.m. my time. It's 10 a.m. my time right now. So it's about 7 hours ago. Was running with a bunch of people from Australia, because they're like, I was like the only American up, I guess. But anyways, 410 race, and really good drivers in it too. I ran my wing at 2 at the start of the race, and I was actually pulling it back as the race went on, and I ended the race with it at 4 or 5. And I was only, I think, a tenth of a second off the fastest car, who was Mason Merritt. He was a really good driver. Let me see if I can find the results real quick. I want to double check that, make sure that I'm right. I don't want to sound like I'm blowing smoke. So he ran a Oh, excuse me. I was 2.5 tenths off of him for the fastest lap. Now I actually missed the start, which takes some skill, and was able to finish fourth. So I mean, I literally started the race a lap down. I missed the start. I had to go to the bathroom, unfortunately, but I was able to actually finish fourth. It was kind of a crash fest with a couple of those guys, but I was only like 2.5 tenths off. Right? I mean, these are pretty good drivers up here, and I was running with them, and I was moving the wing back. I don't know what their run theirs at. My point is that you're not sacrificing the speed like you are with the 360. And not only that, there was only 10 of us in the session. There was only one heat race, and then we went to the feature. The track was pretty fresh. It's not like it was a slick track. So as the track slicked off even more, that margin, like I said, is going to get wider and wider and wider, because as the track slicks off, you're looking for grip. That's the number one thing that you're looking for is grip. It's not speed. You're looking for grip. All right. Qualifying, yeah, speed. Hammer down, keep it straight, turn left. Like that's what you're doing, right? Heat race, yep, same thing. Hammer down, turn left, keep it straight. Feature race, right? When you get into the consolations and the feature, when the track is slick, no. Now it's smooth, consistent, keep the car planted to the track, not sliding all over the place. And a lot of people can't do that. I just showed you my results. All you had to do was finish that race and you would have got a top 5 finish, right? Like that's all you had to do. And that's a lot of official races. Now, I understand surviving, obviously, is a crapshoot a lot of times, particularly lately. But nevertheless, you can have very, very good results just being consistent. So, yeah, no problem, John. See you later, man. So, hey, what's up, Ray? So, with the 410s, okay, the changes that I'm making are pretty similar, right? Not exact, but pretty similar to the 360s. Number one, let's load up the base setup here. Number one, I'm dropping the right front down on this too. I'm actually going down to like even with the 410s. I'm really taking a lot of cross weight out of this car. I'm also dropping my ride heights down a lot more too. Early on in the night, okay, so like I said, with the 360s, you actually kind of start higher and go lower. With the 410s, you start lower and go higher. So early on, I'm actually going down to like 12 3/4 on the left rear and like 14, right around there, like 14.15, 14.2, all right, call it 14 1/4, 14.1 to 14.25. And on the left rear, it's somewhere between like 12 3/4 and 13. That's right about where I start with. That's only for like practice and qualifying though, okay? Like that's literally just for those. Qualifying, I keep the car nice and low, and I just want to, be, like I said, fast and just hammer down, all right? But I am widening out the right rear wheel spacing. I am definitely freeing up this car a whole lot more. Like I said before, it's going to feel really weird to you in the beginning. The car's going to feel like it just wants to snap around, but once you get used to it, you're going to notice that it's much, much quicker. Right? The more free that you can drive the car consistently, the faster your times are going to be. They really will. Okay? In terms of the wings, it's the same stuff. We'll talk more about slick tracks here in a minute. I do, for the most part, start on the big tracks. I will actually start with the same type of bars like on the 360. I'll go like 10 1/4 on the right side and then thousands on the left. On the smaller tracks, I'll actually put in the 1050 and the 10 1/4. and then I'll have a 10 1/4 on the right rear on the smaller tracks. So I stiffen up the front end on the smaller tracks just because I don't want the car when I roll out of the throttle, I don't want it to dive bomb over that right front. The 360s, that doesn't seem to be as much of a problem as it does with the 410s. I don't know if it's because of the weight or what, but with the 410s, I want the stiffer bars. But I do start with a little bit softer shock on the right front. A lot of times I'll actually put the bump at 5 and the rebound at 4 at the start of the night. Keep in mind, you guys, this is for the start of the night, right? This is like the base setup. So even though we're at a 50% track right now, this would be what I start with. And a lot of times I will actually put either a straight 4 on the left front, or even I'll go all the way up to a 4.6 on the left front. Now, when would I do this? If I'm at, let's say, Knoxville, right, and I want to really get that left side to hold down because we're at a flat track, Williams Grove is another example, then I will tie down this left front. I want to keep that left side down as I go into the corner. As the track slicks off, I will gradually take rebound out and maybe increase the bump. A lot of times I might just run it at like 4 and 3. I'll just keep it like that, okay? The shocks are, in the grand scheme of things, the changes in the shocks are really, those are fine-tune adjustments. Like I said before, really you're fine-tuning stuff. So if you're like, man, I don't know what to do, just don't mess with them. Leave the shocks that you've got on there, right? Just remember the stuff that I said earlier about if the car feels twitchy and things like that. Just remember that, you soften that up, you'll be fine. You'll be good, okay? Right rear, earlier on in the night, I will actually increase my bump to like a 5.5. Sometimes it'll be that anyways on the base setup, but I'll also decrease the rebound sometimes to like 4.5. So less rebound actually makes the car a little bit more free going in. I really free the car up now from the start of the night. Like I said, I really get this thing freed up. And then stagger's the same, and that's it. Oh, so I do increase the Packer shim to 2. I do put it at 2 now. On the 360s, I don't know if I said this, I put the Packer at 2 on the 360s because I got the lower ride heights, so I will actually increase that. I don't normally do it though until the feature, when I drop the car down to its lowest point. Okay, but on the 410s, since I start off the night, I'll actually start with it at 2, and then in the feature I'll move it to 1.5. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I leave it at 2. I just forget about it. But it doesn't really matter. It's just preventing the car from bottoming out. Okay, and I don't have really a problem with this thing, but with the 410 bottoming out. The 360 it bottoms out sometimes, so you want to make sure that you get it at 2 if you drop that ride height. But that's about it. That's pretty much it right there. Yeah, that's about where I would start, okay, for my base setup, and then adjust accordingly depending on the track. Now for the feature, as the track slicks off, okay, if we look at what I was doing, right, what we were doing, pretty similar to most of the other setups, right? Got the front end up, got it stiff, got the the stiff shocks in it, and stiff bars in the back, right? You know what I mean? Like that's what we're doing. And sorry, Ray. Are you saying? No, William, I'm not sending these setups out. That's why I'm going over this, because if you look here, all my setups are the same thing that you've got. I haven't created new setups. I'm literally doing this stuff like what I'm showing you right now for my starting point and stuff like that, and the adjustments I make. That's what I'm doing now. I'm doing it on the fly as I go. So I don't have new setups to send out. And with the late model class starting today, I mean today's the first the start of the first week. I'm just not going to have time. That's why I'm going over all this stuff so you guys kind of know what I'm doing and then what you can do to make adjustments to it. So, like I said earlier, I don't know when you got on, William, but like I said earlier, if you've been using these setups and they're working for you, just keep using them, right? Just keep using them. One of the consistent things, like I said before, though, is I'm dropping the right front down. As the track slicks off, I'll usually raise this up a little bit just to get some more bite, and then I've softened the rear bars. Okay, soften the rear bars, and then I've in some instances I've actually gone down to like 975, and then I've got for the 360s a little bit different ride height, but for the 410s, you know, we're in the feature as the track slicks off, we're at 14 and a half and 13. So I mean a lot of it's relatively pretty close to the same. There's a couple of different changes. So yeah, I'm sorry. I would like to send them out. I don't have setups to send to you guys. I just don't right now. So, but with this softer one here, let's go turn a couple laps real quick. Got all that fuel back there. So I'm gonna move my wing back 2 notches. Whenever I'm screaming, I think I gotta keep my screen as clean as possible. So any little speck of mud, I try to quickly pull the tear off. Nope, I'm gonna leave that. I don't need to try to touch the button while I'm turning. So you can see 13.4, so not bad. I mean, it's a 50% track, full load of fuel, so not bad. And I'll save this real quick. Charlotte feature, soft. There we go. Charlotte feature, and here's what we were running, right? So let's run some laps in this one, see how much better, see if it's any better. And I'm running with the wing all the way forward on this setup right now. Oh, I'm also hitting the wall. Come on, Tommy, it's a test section. You reckon? So I think we went a little bit faster. What was that? So yes, I was 2/100ths of a second faster on my fastest lap than with the soft setup. But with the soft setup, I had the wing moved back 2 notches. I had this all the way forward. And like I said, this setup, the stiffer one, for me, falls off at the end of the race, where the soft setup gets better as the race goes on. So that's really the trade-off that you've got. And like I said, for me, I would rather have my car get better as the race goes on than get worse. And this one, it starts out, for me, it starts out really, really good. And it's like halfway through, like I get to like 15 laps. It's like those last 15 laps are just rough. They're really, really rough for me. And that other setup, that softer setup, it just feels much, much better. So that's, basically the changes for everything that I've been doing, you guys. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm running now in terms of setups and things like that. Like I said, I wish I had, a bunch of setups to give to you guys. I don't. But what I can tell you is this. I should actually save that with the wing forward. There we go. Dropping the right front down a couple of turns, right? Dropping the left, you got to take some turns out of the left rear also to compensate for that. Getting your ride height set for the 360s, like I said, it's, basically for the 360s, 14 and 12 and a half, right? I mean, it's right in there. 14, 12 and a half on the 360s, 14 on the right rear, 12 and a half on the left rear. If it's a little bit higher, right, when the track is tackier or a little bit higher, for the feature, that's fine. I mean, if we're going to be technical, I think it's, it's what I say, it's 14.1 and 12.6, right? Like that, the little bit. For the 410s, the ride heights are the same. 14 and a half on the right rear, 13 on the left rear. And basically just softening the rear bars. Okay? Like, softening the rear bars. And then starting, and I've been doing this forever, but starting with the wing move back a couple of notches really helps. It really helps. I mean, it was only a couple laps, but I had the wing at 2 on the soft setup. And it was only, what was it? 2/100ths of a second? Yeah, 2/100ths of a second. Okay, so I'll take it, right? Especially when I know that setup's going to get faster and the other one's going to get slower. For me, okay, guys, I can't reiterate that enough. For me, if the setups have been working for you, don't change them. Like don't mess with them. Like I said, if you're one of those drivers who's sending me messages all the time, showing me all these victories and top 5 finishes, don't mess with it. Like just leave it. But if you've been finding yourself, at the end of the race in the feature and the car feels like it's going away some, or, you just can't get a handle on it and you don't know what's going on, these are things to try, because this can help. I mean, if it helps you as much as it's helped me, you're going to see a big difference. Can save the video. Yeah, Gary, the video will be saved. It is here on Facebook. I am going to it should be recording. Yes, it's recording. And so this will also get put into I'm going to load it to YouTube and it'll be unlisted, and then we will link to it through the Discord. So it'll be up there too. Here to learn how to drive late models in UMP. Oh, really, Shay? You want to learn how to drive the late models in the UMPs? Nice. Well, we're not doing UMPs this round. I'm just doing late models. UMPs somewhere down the line. I don't know when exactly, but somewhere down the line. Because those things are hard. They're really hard. And I don't know about you guys, but bouncing around from car to car to car to car, man, it's a lot. Like I ain't Tony Stewart, man. Like or Casey Kane, you know what I mean? Like I don't have that kind of talent. So, going just from car to car to car. I mean, I wish I could do, like Ken Schrader and just hop into a different car every night and run up front, but I can't. So, UMP mods that's gonna have to wait a little bit. Because I know the basics of the setups with the UMPs. Like I put out some stuff on it, because I had people request it from me, and it helped a lot of people. But also, I I might have to find a UMP mod guy and bring them in to do that, to help me with it, because even the late models, like, you know, well, one of the reasons I'm not as good with the late models right now is because I just haven't touched them in 2 months. I mean, Saturday was the first time I drove late models since, well, the last time I drove a late model was when I recorded the little 30-second video that you see, or the little bumper clip that you see at the beginning of my YouTube videos, where it shows all the different cars, right? Well, that was me driving them. That was the last time I drove a UMP mod or a late model, other than this last Saturday. I just haven't driven a late model. I mean, I was driving them fairly consistently. I just haven't driven one in like 2 months. I've been doing this open wheel stuff. So it'll be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be like me. I'm going to be like learning them all over again. Once I start doing it again, it'll come to me. But yeah, it's going to be fun. So we're going to do limiteds this week, pros, and then supers. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. But you guys, that's going to do it. If you don't have any questions, we're going to wrap it up there. You know, that's pretty much everything. You know, like I said, it's this stuff it's always changing. You know, the bad news is there's not, you know, some setup where I can just go, here you go take it to them, you know. But the good news is that there isn't some magic setup, right? There isn't some undiscovered secret unicorn that we have yet to figure out, and that's why we can't run with the big boys. You can do it, right? You just got to get your car dialed into you and get smooth and consistent. So, you know, it can be done, and I have the testing to prove it. I mean, I've tested so many laps, you know, and I wouldn't show you guys this. I wouldn't suggest this stuff to you if I didn't fully back it, because like I said, I've been doing this now for a couple of weeks. I wanted to make sure, I wanted to try it and verify it, and not just in test situations but races. I've used them in races now, done well with them. You know, like I said, that charity race at Eldora, I was running really, really good. Had I not screwed up and jumped the cushion one lap, you know, I would have had a top 3 finish, and the 2 guys that were ahead of me, you know, had like 4,000, 5,000 I rating. So, you know, it works. It really works. So try it out. Like I said, if you guys got any questions, you guys know how to get a hold of me. You know how to find me. All right. But anyways, that'll do it. As always, you guys, thank you very much for joining me. Until tomorrow night. Yeah, that's right. Tomorrow night, we've got our first test and tune session for the 360 sprint cars. So until tomorrow night, good luck, good racing, take care. See you all then. And until then, have a good one.